Oh, okay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herold here on Badlands Media. I'm your host, John Herold. Hope you're all having a great Friday. Not gonna lie, it's kind of a boring news day. I mean, I think I have plenty of stuff, other than Trump kind of potentially getting us into a nuclear war with Russia this morning, like 5-10 minutes ago. And the Minnesota Twins, they traded away like half their roster. Other than that, it's been kind of boring last 24 hours. But we'll go through it all. It should be a fun time anyway. How's my chat doing? If you guys don't mind hitting that thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. Real quick, let's get a quick word from our sponsors. First up, we got some Badlands merch. Got to talk to you guys about. Guys, unleash your passion with Badlands Media merch. Dive into warm weather with Badlands-themed games and sporting goods, from ping pong balls to golf balls, hockey pucks to frisbees, and even a Badlands pickleball set. Sip your favorite brew, whether it's coffee, hops, or whatever quenches your thirst, all while making a statement. Think rugged tumblers, sleek coffee mugs, beer steins, whiskey glasses, and more. Car accessories, from vanity plates to car magnets, and tech gear that lets you rep Badlands everywhere you go. It's not just t-shirts and hats. Our store is bursting with bold, high-quality gear to fuel your summer vibe. Be sure to take a picture in your gear, tag us on social media, and maybe we'll see you featured in our next commercial. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/merch, grab your official Badlands merch, and spread the word loud and proud. And also, Rise of Tires got some great gear for us as well. Check that out. But yeah, so, I'm probably going to start the shows moving forward going through any updates to the Russia collusion stuff, just because there's so many things kind of happening, and I'm doing a lot of my time researching that specific topic. Going through, I should show you my tab sometime. I have just like one whole side of my computer that's just full of Russia collusion hoax related tabs, OIG documents, declassified stuff, the reports, Mueller probe, all of it. And I'm trying to cross-reference things, and a lot of timeline stuff, some pretty interesting things I'm finding. Also going through and like debunking things on social media that I see from the left, which has been fun. But I want to show you this. Yesterday, we had, and this isn't like new by any means, but I thought it was interesting anyway, so I'm just going to show you guys. Yesterday, Dan Scavino, by the way, has been on a tear going through on like social media, calling people out, posting clips of, or little screenshots of the declassified annex. And he posted this yesterday saying they, the Dems, thought Trump would and those close to him would be in prison by now. That was their end game after a long 9-year journey, but he's back. And the cover-up is unraveling before our very eyes. Buckle up and sleep tight, y'all. You know who you are, TikTok. And so I went to Trump's Twitter archive, and I was just like messing around. I wonder if there's any time Trump said any of these phrases. I searched buckle up, nothing crazy, sleep tight, nothing crazy, you know who you are. The only one that generated any results was this one of saying TikTok. And it was a retweet of something Sean Hannity posted, and he said, boom, TikTok. But Trump deleted this tweet. The date of it is October 25th, 2017. And the timing of that is interesting. It's a couple days before I think the Q drop started. I think it was October 28th, I believe. But anyway, so I copied this link over and to find out what that was. And lo and behold, it's this one. FBI watched, then acted as Russian spy move closer to Hillary Clinton. This is a 2017 article by John Solomon, and who's like playing a huge role right now. And so I'm not saying like this is what Dan Scavino was hinting at. I just thought it was interesting. Like, I had never seen this article before. I wasn't really paying attention at the time. With all this attention on the Russia collusion hoax and what they did, I think a lot of people, including myself, are forgetting all the bad things that Hillary Clinton did prior to the mid-year exam, which led to the mid-year exam cover-up, which led to the Russia. I mean, it's all connected. I don't know if we're actually going to see any justice going back this far, but I think if we go through what the intelligence community did with the Russia collusion hoax, and we go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and then we go back even further and look at, okay, well, clearly they did some BS here with like Trump to frame Trump and impede his presidency. Going back further to the mid-year exam, we're gonna be like, okay, well, why did they not do this investigation properly? And then that's going to keep going back, and we could potentially get to the bottom of some of these previous stories that we never really had an answer to. And I just want to read something at the end here, and I'll post this article in the chat for you guys so you guys can take a look. Oh man, it's a Friday, and I don't think I had enough coffee this morning. Okay, a couple things. Thousands of miles away in Russia, former President Clinton collected a $500,000 check for giving a 90-minute speech to Renaissance Capital, a Kremlin-connected bank, then scored a meeting with Putin himself. The check caught the attention of FBI agents, especially with Hillary Clinton having recently returned from meetings in Russia and her department working on a variety of issues where Moscow had an interest, records show. Now, again, not new information. This is an old article talking about an even older instance of shenanigans. But I think it's maybe important that we don't lose sight of some of this stuff, because this is the reason the Russia collusion hoax played out the way it did. This is why they did the coup. One issue was American approval of the Russian nuclear company Rosatom's purchase of a Canadian company called Uranium One, which controlled 20% of America's strategic uranium reserves. State was one of the more than a dozen federal agencies that needed to weigh in, and a Clinton deputy was handling the matter. The second issue was the Russian company Tenex's desire to score a new raft of commercial nuclear sales to U.S. companies. Tenex for years was selling uranium recycled from old Soviet warheads to the United States, but that deal was coming to an end, and now it needed a new U.S. market. And third was a promise Secretary Clinton herself made to Russian leaders to round up support in America's Silicon Valley for then Russian President Dmitry Medvedev's dream for a new high-tech hub outside Moscow known as Skolkovo. And the name Dmitry Medvedev is important because of something I'm going to show you here in a little bit. A team of venture capitalists had been dispatched to Moscow just a few weeks before Bill Clinton landed the check, records show. Then one more little investigation, and this one I had I didn't realize took place. You'll see. Away from Bill Clinton's check and the breaking news of a spy ring, the FBI had another major investigation underway where the Clinton name was surfacing. Since 2009, the FBI had an undercover informant gathering evidence of a massive bribery and kickback scheme inside the Russian nuclear energy firm Tenex and its American arm Tenam. Years later, FBI agents would help the Justice Department bring charges against the Russian nuclear industry's point man in the United States. Tenex director Vadim Mikarin, as well as a Russian financier and an American trucking executive whose company moved Russian uranium around the United States. But as the informant gathered evidence of the bribery scheme in early 2010, he began to hear a familiar name crop up in conversations. The Russians kept talking about ways the FBI could win access to or favor with the Clintons. And the informant kept reporting it back to his FBI handlers. The informant was never publicly identified. His lawyer told The Hill on Friday he can shed light to Congress on what the Russians were doing to try to win favorable treatment from the Obama administration. This is the quote. I can confirm that my client, while working undercover for the FBI and in the employ of the Russian energy firm Tenex, witnessed numerous detailed conversations in which Russian actors described their efforts to lobby, influence, and ingratiate themselves with the Clintons in hopes of winning favorable uranium decisions from the Obama administration. And the reason I just thought this was so relevant and interesting, not only is it an article by John Solomon, but this is like the FBI investigating Russian spy rings and attempts to like infiltrate and ingratiate themselves with the Clintons. They literally had a guy undercover doing a bribery investigation, and all the while the Russians are talking about the Clintons. Like this type of stuff kind of shows and sheds more light on why the mid-year exam went the way it did and how they handled her emails and didn't even look at any of it, which we're getting, we're coming back around to now. We're probably going to see some of this type of information eventually come out if we get to the bottom of what's on those thumb drives. And it also shows like the fact that Russia didn't release some of the other more damaging information they had is more proof that they could easily control the Clintons. So it's just interesting. But yeah. Richard Rohr, John, you've seen this kid. You just moved on to other documents, matters of state secrets and national security are handled by military. Graham questions Kavanaugh. Yeah. I think I understand what you're saying there. Did you guys get your GART tickets yet? Whether in person or virtual. I think our single day tickets are going on sale here very shortly. And thank you, Wooba129 for the gifted subscriptions. That is great. All right. Anyway, so I mentioned Medvedev. Well, here there's a little back and forth, some cute banter between Trump and Medvedev going on currently, and Trump has a pretty baller Truth Social post like right now. But I want to read this first. Medvedev reminds Trump of Russia's doomsday nuclear strike capabilities as war of words escalates. The former Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev, on Thursday told U.S. President Donald Trump to remember that Moscow possessed Soviet-era nuclear strike capabilities of last resort after Trump told Medvedev to watch his words. Trump, in a post on his Truth Social network in the early hours of Thursday, singled out Medvedev, who is deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council, for sharp criticism after Medvedev said that Trump's threat of hitting Russia and buyers of its oil with punitive tariffs was a game of ultimatums and a step closer towards a war between Russia and the United States. Trump said, tell Medvedev, the failed former president of Russia, who thinks he's still president, to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory. Trump on July 29th said Russia had 10 days from today to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine or be hit along with its oil buyers with tariffs. Moscow, which has set out its own terms for peace, which Kyiv says amount to demanding its capitulation, has not so far indicated it will comply with Trump's deadline. And then this morning, not even this morning, this was just like 20 minutes ago, you got this. Donald Trump, Truth Social, based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions, just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. Words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Thank you for your attention to this matter. You know, thinking back to like the Cold War days, you know, Russian nukes, nuclear submarines, like finagling around, and our nukes finagling around. Everything is top secret, and the whole thing was like a game of trying to figure out where the nukes were. And here Trump's just like, yeah, I'm sending nukes to the region. Like, just totally giving the game away. Normally stuff like that would be kept secret, but no, Trump wants it to be a public show. A lot of what he does is very public. How does John pronounce Medvedev so perfectly every time? I don't know. I struggle with a lot of words, but that one I don't. But this reminds me of the Iran kerfuffle. You know, we stepped into the Israel war and bombed Iran, but we gave them advance notice so that they moved all their people out of there. And then when they returned fire and bombed us, they warned us first, and not a single bomb like hit its intended target. And now we're giving advance notice that we're putting nuclear subs in the region. Because like back during the Cold War, if you did this, they would know like to go look for the subs. Not anymore. Those days are over. You just tell your war plans on social media. Just makes it all that much more silly. We got no update on the Doge website. No surprise there. We also have no update. Or do we have an update? Yeah, we do. We do have updates on the presidential website. What the heck? Oh, yeah. We talked about this yesterday a little bit. President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition, and the reestablishment of the presidential fitness test. I mean, I think that's probably a good idea. Let's, be a little healthier. They've modified the reciprocal tariff rates. I'll get to that story in a little bit. Nominations sent to the Senate. I haven't looked at any of those. I wonder if there's anything interesting. Edward Forst. Don't even know what that is. And then amendment to duties to address the flow of illicit drugs across our northern border. I wonder what they did there. He probably just extended the deadline. But I'll figure that out. I don't want to for sure say that because I don't know with certainty. You guys making fun of how I say Russian words? Anyway, okay, let's keep going here. A couple posts I want to show, one from Kash Patel and one from Dan Bongino. You know, two of the top boys over at the FBI. Kash Patel is commenting on John Solomon's post here about the Durham annex. This was yesterday at like 3 o'clock. So we uncovered this annex along with thousands of other documents buried in a back room at the FBI. It revealed a highly classified piece of the Durham report, evidence that the Clinton campaign plotted to frame President Trump and fabricate the Russia collusion hoax. We worked with Chairman Grassley and declassified the documents immediately. Now the American people can see the truth for themselves. The Russia hoax was a disgrace that President Trump and our country should have never been put through. This should be a step toward justice. There will be more to come. That's the part I'm interested in. Your FBI will keep being relentless to get the truth out. We're thankful for federal partners at the Justice Department and CIA and more. And thank you, Chuck Grassley, for your tireless investigative work. It's been funny to see the left and you know, figures on the left cover this annex, because if they cover it at all, they're having like somebody like a John Brennan on or a Mark Elias or whatever, and just being like, oh, it's total lie. None of that happened. They're just, you know, politically persecuting us. And then you have mainstream journalists out here like totally misrepresenting what the annex said. I think I even have a replied to somebody just a second ago. Like this Jonathan Lemire, he's a co-host on Morning Joe, MSNBC, writes for The Atlantic. Clinton plan emails were likely made up by Russian spies, declassified report shows. That's not true. It's not true at all. But this is how they're trying to spin these things. New York Times. Clinton plan emails were likely made up by Russian spies. An annex to a report by the special counsel John Durham was the latest in a series of disclosures about the Russian inquiry as the Trump team seeks to distract from the Epstein files. I have a story about that here too, the Epstein stuff. But it's funny to watch them do this. And I think the fact that Kash Patel said there is going to be more is important, because as the left continues to like double down and lie about what's finally coming out, like the proof of this stuff, and then the more damning information starts to come out, it's going to make these people look like idiots. I mean, they already look like idiots. I know people in this audience don't care, but imagine this Jonathan Lemire guy. You know, he's got a big following. He's on mainstream media, and he's going to be out there talking, saying that it was likely made up by Russian spies. And then a week later, you get confirmation, further damning information. It's going to peel. They're going to peel their own audience away from themselves, because they're going to have to keep changing the story. And eventually, at some point, they can't just stop reporting on it when people start getting arrested and the proof comes out of why they're arrested. They're kind of screwed. They're in a little bit of a pickle here, because at some point you either acknowledge you've been wrong and try to like preserve whatever, like save face in whatever way possible, or you just continue to make a fool of yourself. And for the media that's complicit in this, you know, I don't know what their options are going to be. I think a lot of them are going to have to like go down with the ship. I do not know. I'm trying to see what you guys are still talking about, how I talk. I need a code for a virtual ticket. If anyone knows one, please. I've got to see Brad's documentary. Badlandsmedia.tv/events. Brad's documentary is going to be awesome. Plus, on top of the documentary, you get exclusive live streams leading up to it. You also get the awesome content at the panels. Tattoo Teacher says, knowingly will be the key difference. That is true. That is very true. And very key. This is from Dan Bongino. He's the one, it was about a week ago, I think he posted that it was pretty cryptic. He's like, the things I've seen will change me forever. And I want to see what he's talking about. I think we'll get there eventually. But an update for you all on Operation Summer Heat, our violent crime takedown push across America. This continues to deliver results, highlighting our ongoing intelligence-driven enforcement efforts. We're seeing real impact where it matters most in the communities we serve. Just this week, your FBI teams arrested 80 people and located or identified 14 victims of child exploitation. These include the arrest of an international fugitive wanted for the sexual abuse of a minor overseas who was living right here in the U.S., and a convicted sex offender in Florida who was using the internet to access child sex abuse materials. They also arrested an Ohio man on charges related to threatening to kill a U.S. congressman, and helped our law enforcement partners in Washington state investigate and find the suspect responsible for the shooting of law enforcement officer on the Lumi Reservation. These highlights are just one piece of a larger picture. Since the kickoff of the summer heat in late June, the FBI and our law enforcement partners seized 8,200 kilograms of cocaine. It's more than 18,000 pounds, with an estimated street value exceeding $820 million. Maybe we should just start selling those drugs and paying down our debt, sell them back to like Mexico or something. That's real impact driven by coordinated enforcement. By the numbers, 2,500 plus violent criminals have been arrested. 340 child victims have been located or identified. 640 plus guns are now out of the hands of criminals. I've said it before, and I want to reiterate it again. Summer Heat reflects our focus on identifying and disrupting violent crime trends with real-time data. That goes in line with a story, if I can find it. Here we go. ICE arrests near 150,000 since January as Trump operation ramps up fast. So not only are we going after the criminals, we're also going after the illegals. And I mean, this is not new information, but seeing some of the numbers trickle out, I think it's good. It's important. And this also goes hand in hand with, if I can find the story, the jobs numbers. Okay, here we go. Because a lot of the jobs that we're getting and adding are like native born workers and not foreign workers. But there's been a revision to some jobs report stuff. And I think Trump's using a little game theory here himself when he's doing this, or when they're doing this. U.S. added just 73,000 jobs in July, and numbers for prior months were revised much lower. Non-farm payrolls growth totaled 73,000 for July. Let me find the actual highlights I have here. Or did I not highlight? Whoopsie. Anyway, non-farm payroll growth was slower than expected in July, and the unemployment rate tricked higher, raising potential trouble signs for the U.S. labor market as President Donald Trump ramps up tariffs. Job growth totaled a seasonally adjusted 72,000 for the month, above the June total of 14,000, but below even the meager Dow Jones estimate for the gain of 100,000. June and May totals were revised sharply lower, down by a combined 258,000 from previously announced levels. And this is a notable thing because the Biden administration was notorious for this. They would come out with these like huge job numbers, and then they would revise them significantly lower. Like there was one instance, I think it was like 800 some thousand lower. I was going to see if that was in this article. So I don't remember where I saw that. But Zero Hedge has an interesting take on this, and I think this is what may be potentially happening here. Back in August, this is what they wrote. U.S. jobs revised down, this is where I saw the number, by 818,000 in election year shocker, second worst revision in U.S. history. Again, August of 2024. And this is what Zero Hedge says today. Why today's massive job revisions? Recall last August, the Biden admin revised away 818,000 jobs, which were never there. This was the trigger for the September of 2024 jumbo 50 BPS rate cut. It was panicked by the Fed. Trump advisors are finally catching on. What he's implying here is, maybe Trump's putting out these numbers, Trump's team advisors, whatever, to force the hand of the Fed to lower rates. Because yesterday they came out and they didn't do it. That's an interesting little theory. Very interesting little theory. I was going to see if I thought I had a post maybe on how didn't Trump call out what's his face today? Powell? Let's look at this together. No. Well, here's one. Yeah, 4 hours ago. Too little, too late. Jerome, too late. Powell is a disaster. Drop the rate. The good news is that tariffs are bringing billions of dollars into the USA. Surprised it wasn't like more. Here's another one. Strong dissents on Fed board. It will only get stronger. Too late. I think. And then 6 hours ago, Jerome too late. Powell, a stubborn moron, must substantially lower interest rates. Now, if he continues to refuse, the board should assume control and do what everyone knows has to be done. So yeah, I think he's kind of it is rigged. Richard Rohr says, John, it's the same as elections. It's rigged. I agree. I think it is. Rates do need to be dropped. I want to refinance my house. This is another post. The Senate must stay in session, taking no recess until the entire executive calendar is clear. We have to save our country from the lunatic left. Republicans, for the health and safety of the USA, do your job and confirm all nominees. They should not be forced to wait. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Here's another Russia post. I've just been informed that almost 20,000 Russian soldiers died this month in the ridiculous war with Ukraine. Russia has lost 112,500 soldiers since the beginning of the year. That is a lot of unnecessary death. I wonder where he's getting these numbers from. Ukraine, however, has also suffered greatly. They've lost approximately 8,000 soldiers since January 1st, 2025, and that number does not include their missing. Ukraine has also lost civilians, but in smaller numbers, as Russian rockets crash into Kyiv and other Ukrainian locales. This is a war that should never have happened. This is Biden's war, not Trump's. I'm just here to see if I can stop it. It did go from, I'm going to stop that war before I get into office, to I'm putting my nuclear subs in their, positions. It's quite the narrative flip. It could all totally be kayfabe. We talk about that stuff a lot. We think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and I do believe that. The threat of nuclear war, the nuclear scare is something we've talked about many times. So we'll talk about this more on the Power Hour, I'm sure. A couple things from our Badlands website. A couple stories. Come on now. There we go. Okay, Biden DOJ official who approved $2 million in Russia hoax settlements now leads anti-Trump legal group. The Biden administration official who authorized more than $2 million in taxpayer-funded settlements for former FBI agents tied to the Russia collusion hoax later joined a prominent group chaired by Democrat operative Mark Elias, dedicated to using the courts against President Trump. Newly obtained records reveal. Brian Netter, then Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Department of Justice's Federal Programs Branch, signed off on the payouts to former FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok and former attorney Lisa Page. The pair sued the DOJ over the public release of text messages sent on government devices that revealed their central role in advancing the Clinton campaign's now discredited Trump-Russia narrative. Now he serves as the legal director for Democracy Forward, a Democrat-run legal group launched in 2017 to wage lawfare against the Trump administration. This is like sneaky. This is dirty. And the implication here is like, hey, that's kind of looks like a payoff. I wonder if that'll be tied to any of this, Grand Rico stuff. El Salvador has ruled that, the ruling party approves reforms allowing indefinite presidential reelection. I think we should do this here. El Salvador's Legislative Assembly, once we fix our elections, that's the caveat. El Salvador's Legislative Assembly on Thursday approved constitutional reforms backed by President Nayib Bukele's New Ideas Party, eliminating presidential term limits and extending presidential terms from 5 to 6 years. Changes introduced by New Ideas lawmaker Ana Figueroa amend 5 articles of the Constitution and also remove the requirement for a runoff election if no candidate secures a majority in the first round. Received a 57-3 vote. I've always said, even term limits here in the United States, if we had actual election integrity, we wouldn't need them. We wouldn't need them. The only reason I care that we would put them in is if we don't reform how our elections are run, because then you could get rid of the corrupt old bag of bones a lot quicker than having the Nancy Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers and all these people who are there for decades. Like, they wouldn't turn into careers. But what happens if you get career politicians who are actually legit, which I know that's kind of an oxymoron, it doesn't really exist. But the possibility's there. If we had real elections, the American people are supposed to have the final say. And if there's somebody good that's supposed to be there, they can be there. I don't really care. If they suck, the election should remove them. But we don't have free and fair elections, so none of this kind of really matters, you know? But anyway, it's cool that El Salvador's doing it. Cambodia has nominated, or is going to nominate, President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize following the border ceasefire for his actions on True Social. Cambodia plans to nominate President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, citing his direct role in brokering a ceasefire in the recent deadly border conflict with Thailand. Deputy Prime Minister Sun Chanthol confirmed on Friday. So that's great. I think he deserves it for multiple reasons. Georgia Election Board revives 2020 election fight. Speaking of elections, seeks DOJ help over Fulton County records. Georgia's state election board voted Wednesday to escalate a renewed inquiry into the 2020 presidential election, requesting intervention from President Trump's Department of Justice and approving new efforts to obtain documents from Fulton County. They voted 3-2 to pursue voter lists, chain of custody forms, ballot images, scanner records, and security documentation tied to the 2020 recount. The resolution directs the Secretary of State and Attorney General to work with federal authorities, including the DOJ, to obtain the outstanding records. I think this is great. This is awesome. If it reaches its logical conclusion of exposing our fraudulent election system. Before passing the resolution, the board's Republican majority also moved to reduce Fervier's authority. That is, who is Fervier? She's the board chairman. Yeah. They shifted power over personnel, job postings, and scheduling to the new executive director, John Mills. Mills' assistant, Hope Cohn, was hired last week. She's the wife of the board's former executive director, Mike Cohn, who frequently clashed with Fervier. I wonder if is this the John Mills that's like wasn't he like an NSA guy? John Mills. Is he the county commission board? Or? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out if this is the same Mills I'm thinking of. Because isn't there like a Colonel Mills or something? So I'm thinking of this guy, Colonel John Mills, retired. Is that the same guy as this guy? This week, the Republican majority moved to consolidate some authority, including the hiring and scheduling meetings of their handpicked executive director, John Mills. Does anybody know? Does anybody know? I'm just going to wait in the chat for you guys to chime in. Do your part here. Confirm my bias, please. Whatever, I'll come back to that, I guess, when you guys give me an answer. Oh, what else is going on? We have, Trump officials are visiting Gaza this week. They're going to inspect the airdrops of supplies. A lot of, back and forths going on with the two-state solution things. Those discussions seem to be heating up. I know Ghost is going live here after the show, so at 2 p.m. I'll send you guys over there. But here's a thing. U.S.-backed Gaza aid group releases evidence suggesting former contractor who accused it of war crimes fabricated documents as revenge for his firing. The former Gaza Humanitarian Fund employee, who now claims he witnessed American-backed war crimes, privately threatened to become an aid organization's worst enemy after being fired due to poor performance, volatile conflicts with staff, and erratic behavior, according to text messages and other GHF employees who testified under oath. Anthony Aguilar, retired U.S. Special Forces officer who worked as a contractor with GHF, ignited a media firestorm this week when he claimed to have resigned after witnessing the Israeli Defense Forces shooting at the crowds of Palestinians and committing other alleged war crimes. News outlets like the BBC and CBS News ran with Aguilar's account, and Senator Chris Van Hollen interviewed the fired former contractor in a YouTube video. since his June 13th termination, the UG Solutions, the security firm working with GHF, Aguilar has allegedly fabricated documents supporting this case and repeatedly begged the aid organization to rehire him. They presented multiple text messages they sent that directly contradict his story. So a lot of BS floating around, as always. Go. John, General Mills is superior to Kellogg. That's pretty good. Richard Rory, you get awfully bossy sometimes, man. Kind of annoying. There's this story that came out. We just got to talk about it real quick. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. I don't even know if I'm going to read my highlights on it, but never mind. I probably will. The FBI this is in Bloomberg, by the way. The FBI redacted Trump's name in the Epstein files. That's like the headline. The Bureau's FOIA team tasked with conducting a final review of the records blacked out the names before higher-ups said last month that releasing the documents would not be appropriate or warranted. And so I'm going to go down, and I think it is important to get some of the context. What happened next kicked off a new phase in the Epstein saga. As I reported in the March 28th edition of the FOIA files, Patel directed FBI special agents from the New York and Washington field offices to join the Bureau's FOIA employees at its sprawling central records complex in Winchester, Virginia, and another building a few miles away. They were instructed to search for and review every single Epstein-related document and determine what could be released. That included a mountain of material accumulated by the FBI over nearly 2 decades, including grand jury testimony, prosecutor case files, as well as tens of thousands of pages of the Bureau's own investigative files on Epstein. It was a Herculean task that involved as many as 1,000 FBI agents and other personnel pulling all-nighters while pouring through more than 100,000 documents, according to a July letter from Senator Dick Durbin to Bondi. Senior officials at the FBI Records Information Dissemination Section, which handles the processing of FOIA requests, pushed back on the directives. Michael Seidel, the section chief of RIDS, who worked at the FBI for about 14 years, was quite vocal, the 3 people familiar with the matter told me. So it's kind of based on anonymous sources, potentially. Patel blamed him for the failure to send all of the Epstein files to Bondi. We got a name. Maybe we already knew that name, but if so, I wasn't aware of it. Then a couple of months ago, Seidel was told he could either retire or be fired, according to the people. He chose the former, retire, and quietly left the FBI. The details related to Seidel's exit haven't been previously reported. Okay, so I didn't know. It wasn't a new thing, or it was a new thing. The FBI employees reviewed the records using the Freedom of Information Act as their guide for deciding what information should be withheld. That alone isn't uncommon. In the FOIA, Congress established 9 exceptions as a way to balance the public's right to know against the government's need to protect sensitive interests, such as national security, official deliberations, ongoing law enforcement proceedings, or privacy. When such competing interests arise in non-FOIA matters, those exemptions are often applied, even if the exact language set forth in the FOIA statute doesn't appear in the final record. While reviewing the Epstein files, FBI personnel identified numerous references to Trump in the documents, the people familiar with the matter told me. And again, the headline here versus what the story is being told and the wording used in the story is what's the problem here? Because when they say numerous references to Trump, how many is that? Is that 3? Is that 5? Is that 100? Is that 1,000? Like if they knew there were thousands and thousands of references to Trump in the Epstein files that they're going through, I feel like they would say that. Instead, there's just numerous references. We know that we already knew that Trump was in here, right? I mean, that's not a new thing, but it's not for the reasons that people want to say it is. It's not for the reasons that the Democrats are demanding these files be released. But anyway, here's a story in Bloomberg talking about the FBI redacting his name. People who just read the headlines are going to be like, oh my gosh, the FBI was covering for Trump. That's why this whole thing went down the way it did. But it's not even true. They were going through and following the FOIA stuff. His name came up, and let me read a little further here. Dozens of the other high-profile public figures also appeared, the people said. The appearance of Trump's name or others in Epstein files is not evidence of a crime or even a suggestion of wrongdoing. In preparation for potential public release, the documents then went to a unit of FOIA officers who applied redactions in accordance with the 9 exceptions. The people familiar with the matter said that Trump's name, along with other high-profile individuals, was blacked out because he was a private citizen when the federal investigation of Epstein was launched in 2006. So it's very misleading. And within the article itself, it kind of like debunks its own implications of the headline. And we already know, we've said this before, if there was any actual dirt on Trump in any of this stuff, it would have been that ammunition would have been spent by now by the Democrats. They've tried everything, including killing the guy. You don't think they'd release some of this shit if they had it? Of course they would. But yeah, I just thought it was important to read that article. Palantir has gotten a $10 billion contract from the U.S. Army. The award, covering the next decade, is one of the largest DoD contracts ever, cementing the tech firm's role in warfighting for years to come. They issued the contract worth $10 billion on Thursday. It's the largest ever awarded to the software and data analysis company. It comes on the heels of an additional $795 million the military allocated earlier this year to put into its artificial intelligence targeting software, the Maven Smart System. The new enterprise agreement, according to an Army statement, marks a significant shift in the Army's software purchasing practices and establishes a comprehensive framework for the Army's future software and data needs. The Army said the new agreement would consolidate existing software contracts and lead to significant cost efficiencies across mission-critical programs. This streamlined approach reduces procurement timelines, ensuring soldiers have rapid access to cutting-edge data, integration, analytics, and AI tools. Peter Thiel getting further involved with our government. Nothing to see here. They already have all our info anyway. I do need a chiropractor. My neck is messed up right now. Just like the last couple of days, it's gotten worse. Don't know what's going on. I like try getting like one of those like deep tissue massages where they just like destroy you, and it didn't really help. I don't know. I think it's probably like sitting at this chair too much, doing too much research, but it's been bugging me for like 3-4 years now. It's not really anything new. I don't even realize half the time when I'm like making weird movements. So kind of is what it is. The new tariff stuff. We got universal rate. A tariff of 10% will mean what it means. Let me find the actual story here. Okay, here we go. How some countries have reacted to their new tariff rates set to start next week. Global leaders are waking up to a revised set of tariffs on their exports to the United States today. They are set to go into effect next week and affects virtually every nation. While most countries are facing rising tariffs, some are breathing a sigh of relief after securing last-minute deals. Here's how some of the countries have reacted. New Zealand said the hike tariffs are unwarranted. They went to 15%. Where's the universal rate? The 10% universal tariff stays, but about 40 countries with which the U.S. runs a trade deficit will now face a 15% rate. Some will be hit with even steeper rates. Brazil faces a 50% total tariff after an additional 40% was imposed on Wednesday, despite the U.S. running a trade surplus last year, exporting more to Brazil than it imported. There's a whole table of them out here. John, get a rebounder. More magnesium. Man, everybody has everybody got some suggestions. I'll read through these at the end of the show. Yeah, even when I go to chiropractic, it doesn't really work. I'm gonna see if J-Trey can fix me up when we're down in Deadwood, though. So we'll wait for that. We'll see what happens. I think that might be all the stories I got. Is that true? Can that be true? I think it is. I do have one video I'll play here. This can kind of be like the lib meltdown of the week. But it's pro-Palestinian protesters taking over Chuck Schumer's office in New York. Stop starving Gaza! Let Gaza live! 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 Take that, Chuck. See if there's anything else I missed here. I don't really see anything else. So unless there's anything you guys want to talk about, do a couple rants here real quick. Babbage 3, everyone remember to flip your ghost calendars over to August. Heck yeah. Thank you, Babbage. And Herold Patriot says, happy Herold Friday, everyone. Enjoy the weekend. We will be on Only Lands tonight. So make sure you guys tune into that. That's always a good time. Should be fun. And yeah, Ghost is going live here shortly on his show, Geopolitics with Ghost. Should also be very enlightening. Steve Zinnia, neck issues pretty much coincide with the time Burning Bright came along. Coincidence? Yes. Or no coincidence. That is 100% correlated. Kelly and Oak says, I have a relationship with Ben Gay, but Oak calls him Walter. I don't need the details of your marital issues, Kelly, but thank you. Rocket Savvy, John, it's your posture. You can get aligned by choosing, but if you have your head way in front of the shoulders, it will pull your neck back out. I'm a physical therapist. Sometimes like my posture, like the way I do things is the only thing that like feels comfortable. But Rocket Savvy, you should send me like something I can read to understand what you're talking about. So I don't know what else to do. Rimas Bright says that's when my neck pain started. Is BB a pain in your neck or a pain in your arse? A little of both. Little of both. Try acupuncture. I have tried that a while ago. Hang upside down, John. That seems weird. Oh, we got an Amazon product. Check that out. All right. Sue Castellano says, I've been a massage therapist for 26 years. I could totally help you if I didn't live in Connecticut. Maybe we should hold a Gart in Connecticut then, just for this reason alone. John, will you make a rocking chair Badlands emoji for BB when he gets going? I could try to find that. I can do that. Yeah, no, what's my posture? I have a nice chair though. But anyway, whatever. We'll stop criticizing my posture and we'll get you guys out of here. You guys have a great rest of your Friday. I'm looking forward to tonight's show on Only Lands. Make sure you guys tune in. Hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. And yeah, we'll see you tonight.
0. Extra, extra, read all about it. 2, 3. Let's get started. That's what she said. Oh, that's real good.